As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be.
Oh man, it's 8 o'clock.
And so that'll make it a.
BravBros. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of BravBros, your favorite podcast from the bros for everybody, for whoever wants to listen. I am your co-host, Steele Russell, joined as always by the one and only Vagoots. What's up, dude?
Vagoots?
Yes, Vagoots, like Vagar, but Vagoots.
All right, that's fair. All right, I'll take it. Heat wave finally fucking broke.
Kind of.
It's all right. I mean, it's not 99 anymore, so that's great. But going outside, not fun.
No, it's windy as shit today, too, and I'm growing corn stalks in my garden.
Yep.
And they're getting like 3.5 feet tall, and I went out there and I only saw two. The other two got blown over, so I had to reinforce the ground with more soil
Fun.
to keep those bad boys up. I'm very dedicated to my garden.
All right, good.
It's very peaceful out there. That's like I've learned it's kind of cathartic to be out there. I spend a lot of time in the garden now.
Good.
Big homesteader.
Big high garden guy.
Big high garden guy. Yeah. As you,
Steel Tyrell.
I'll take that. Nah.
No?
If I could join a family, oh, that's a good question. If you could join a house, which house would you join?
Which timeline are we looking at? Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon?
I think all encompassing. You have to ride that lineage. Let's say it's, in between, betwixt the two.
Probably Dorne.
Okay. Wow. That's,
Martell.
yeah, that
Beautiful
didn't
down
expect
there.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. It's kind
They
of,
kind of stay out of a lot of the fights, too. They just get to enjoy their wine and hang out.
yeah, but then you get your head crushed.
Well,
Eventually.
someone gets their head crushed. I'm not
That's
exactly.
you.
It's not like I'm Oberyn. I didn't say I am Oberyn.
Are you Oberyn?
Could be.
You're
Yeah.
Pedro
I'd
Pascal?
be okay. Yeah, I'd be all right with that. Yeah.
That's fine. And then you just get your head crushed. It's all
Yeah.
good. No big deal. I think I would choose. That's tough. I think I'm Stark. I'm just a Stark kind of guy, you know?
Just brooding.
Brooding, loyal.
Miserable.
Just, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. That
Just a
actually works out
miserable
pretty well.
fuck. No. But as you can tell, we're talking Thrones talk here today. So we are going to get into some House of the Dragon. This second episode did not disappoint. I love this show. I love that we get to cover this show. I love that people are listening to this show. This is a lot of fun. I don't know how you're feeling about it, but I am thoroughly enjoying myself.
Well, I'm pumped that it's back, and we started to tease it a little bit. We actually would just talk about it randomly during Bravo recaps a couple years ago when the first season was out. Now we actually get to cover the entire show. It makes Sunday nights, it makes the weekend much more enjoyable because usually you're just kind of winding down on Sundays, making a nice dinner, prepping for the week, maybe going to bed a little early. Not with House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon's back on at 9. You are pumped up and ready to roll.
Yeah, and I got to pace myself during. I get so excited in the morning, and then it takes all day to get to it at night.
You
But
got to keep yourself busy all day.
yeah, I have been. You know, I had my my men's league on Sunday. Don't worry, still out there
Yep.
reliving the glory days. I'm waiting.
Not hurt yet.
Yet.
Yep.
Yet. I'm catching this Sunday.
It's going to happen
So
eventually. It's
a-
just nothing you can do about it.
yeah, I know. There's going to be a day where I'm not going to be able to walk very well. But look, we got to do what we got to do to stay young. Just to feel young again, you know? That's why I'm out there. I'm waiting for a call from the Phillies. I haven't gotten it yet.
No?
But here's to hope.
Yeah, you keep us posted on
Here's
that
to
one.
hoping. I need to address one thing. Well, two things. One thing. Two things? Let me address two things.
Yeah.
So up first, I need to adjust our odds a little bit. I want to move Rhaenyra down. More likely to be killed. I've got a
Wait,
feeling.
move her up the list?
Move her
'Cause
up the list.
top of the list is who's likely to be killed.
Okay, then Rhaenyra needs to move up. I got a
Okay.
vibe. I don't know. This episode, I caught a vibe. I don't think she's making it. I don't think she's making it to the end. I think she's
Okay.
going to be. I thought she's going to get whacked this time. Honestly, I thought
Okay.
that. And clarify for me, Arryk or Erryk? Who's the bad one?
Arryk.
Arryk. A. Okay, cool. I got
A
confused.
bad, E good.
A bad, E good.
Mhm.
I can fuck with that. So I thought that he was going to get her. I really did. I was like, this would be awesome, sad, but awesome if he gets in there, actually pulls this off, and then gets killed. I figured he would get killed by Erryk at some point. Spoiler alert. I figured that would happen, but I thought he had a chance to actually do it and then get killed, and that would just cause such chaos and everything.
Right.
So that being said, she was that close. I wouldn't be surprised if Thrones does a Thrones and takes her out.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, once, we'll get into this a little bit later, but once you saw the Messarius saw Arryk walking up,
Mhm.
you knew that Rhaenyra wasn't going to die. Somebody was probably going to end up dying. There's probably a couple people along the way. But as soon as she clocked him and knew exactly who it was and stopped her guard instead of continuing to her freedom, it's like, all right, well, Rhaenyra's not going to die, but other people are going to die. And obviously, we're going to have the twin fight. So that's going to be awesome.
We did not have the twins on our death pool.
No, we didn't. They weren't big enough at the time. Obviously, you know, one episode into the season, there's going to be newer characters, and we knew who they were, obviously. But they weren't big enough for me to put on the death pool at the time.
Well, you missed out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could have put their odds at the same because we, just based off of you starting the episode, you wouldn't have known which was which anyway.
Arryk and Erryk. Well, that was the thing. I was looking at subtitles, and then I was like, wait a minute. They're both named Erryk? And then I was like, oh, they're Arryk and Erryk. It's A and E.
Yeah.
A bad, E good.
Yep. There you go.
Because A bad has an A in it.
Okay, yeah.
That's how I remember it.
Don't go any further.
Good.
No.
Goody.
Goody.
As an E.
Yeah, I knew
So there you go.
You always take it one step too far. You could have just stopped there. That was even a stretch to begin with, and then you had to keep going. So no.
Goody.
Goody.
But don't worry if you are waiting for some Bravo content to drop. We are still covering all of our Bravo shows. I couldn't help myself today. I usually don't post Roan J stuff on Twitter, and I was like, you know what? I need to poke the bear just a little bit. I'm glad I did. There was some very funny comments, and it also just reinforced the fact that Jersey fans, like not the majority, but there's that small minority of Jersey fans that are just fucking nuts.
They are.
It's crazy. The comments we get are crazy. I didn't respond to any of them.
Good.
You'd be proud of me.
Good.
But I just reading them, I'm like, God, you take it so seriously. You don't even know these people. But I enjoyed myself. I just wanted to test the waters. Still crazy. So that's good to know. But we're not here to talk about Bravo today. We're here to talk about House of the Dragon. So let's dive in. Or let's fly in. Rawr. But I thought the overall theme of this episode, or what we're starting to get, is the transition really from the first season's cast and who was in charge into who's going to replace them this season. I thought that this was like the transitional episode where you're really seeing the weight of everything start to fall on the new leadership. Aegon, Alicent, Rhaenyra, so on and so forth. You're starting to see that it's setting in like, oh shit, we're in charge, and oh shit, our actions have ramifications. So I thought that was interesting to watch the character development here, as well as the replacing of the old guard. You even get Otto shipping out, which you called early. It's a nice job. So I just think that they do such a good job in these shows of setting up the storylines. And I think that what this show is doing better than Game of Thrones did, Game of Thrones would take a very long time, some episodes, to get you to that point. And I feel like the House of the Dragon does a good job of not speeding it up, but making it more interesting along the way. You don't have those slow moments.
Yeah, and it is moving a little slow, especially for something that's been highly touted as an action-packed second season. Pretty much everybody thought that this is when all the war battles, everything, all the dragon battles, all of the whatever you want to call it, starting off with blood and cheese, you're like, all right, we're going to hit the ground running. But there still needs to be plot developed. You can't do it too quickly because it's not Thrones anymore. But I would actually say that it's becoming more and more clear that this is, it's a story about, a fractured family kind of going against each other, weakening the Targaryen rule that's been going on for hundreds of years, things like that, obviously. But really what this story is about to me is essentially lovers turned to enemies, where you watch Alicent and Rhaenyra, who were very close as friends, very close, essentially family in the beginning. You could even say that maybe they were in love at one point in time. Now you're watching them completely separate, and you're seeing how Alicent and the rest of her family underneath of her are, how they've developed based off of how she is as a mother. To Rhaenyra's side, where you get, Luke is dead, but you still have Jace out there, and Jace is interacting with Daemon's kids, and there's two new kids that we already know, which is, I think,
Darren?
No. Rhaenyra's kids are Viserys, and I want to say Aegon as well, or Ares.
The one that they're bringing in from...
No, that's Alicent's son. That's
Darren.
Darren. Yeah, Darren. But you're seeing how Alicent as a mother compared to Rhaenyra as a mother.
Oh, you mean the two kids she's playing with?
Yeah.
Okay,
those are her two
Dragonstone.
babies
Gotcha.
with Daemon.
Yes.
But yeah, you're seeing how those actions have ramifications, where Alicent was not there as a mother to kid A, kid B, kid C, and how they are completely fucked because Alicent's not there. And then you see on Rhaenyra's side that Jace is doing the right thing, and he's learning to, love his betrothed and talking about how he misses Luke. And he's even opening up about how obviously Harwin Strong is his dad. So there's a lot of things going on there that she's able to be there for as a mother and a queen, where Alicent is not. So it's interesting to put those two storylines side by side.
Especially when you take it back to season 1 and you compare the two of Alicent being forced pretty much to get married to Viserys after Otto placed her in the throne room with him to try to...
By the way, did you see who everybody is comparing Otto to?
No.
Kris Jenner.
Yeah. That's really funny.
There's a lot of really good memes going around where it's Otto as Kris Jenner saying, after Blood and Cheese, what I really wanted to do was kill them. But as a manager, I want to spin this.
That's actually really funny.
Yeah.
That's on the nose. But I think that it's interesting when you compare the upbringing of their children to the fact that Alicent was forced into marriage pretty much as a teenager to get married to Viserys, and then she has the kids, so she wasn't really ready for a motherly role. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra, she got to choose, and then they forced her to marry the Sea Snake's son. But even after that, when they quote-unquote kill him, he's not dead, he got shipped out of the boat.
Laenor.
Yep, but she got to choose to marry Daemon. So I think that is also important to note. Their paths were set differently, and that will also affect their motherhood and all of those things. So I think you're right. It is lovers pitted against each other. You can even take it deeper than that, where, Criston Cole, he was in love with Rhaenyra, now he's with Alicent. So there's a lot of bad blood amongst all of these people that used to be close at one point. They're related, blah, blah, blah. So yes, I agree with you, and I think that's an interesting perspective to look at it. But let's jump into this episode, and we are in post-Jahearys death mode, and everyone is reacting to it. They're getting everybody rounded up at the castle, and I thought that this scene, although quick, was super duper important, especially how I just said. I feel like this episode is like the replacing of the old guard, because you see Aegon in his, what is that, his bedroom, I guess?
Essentially, yeah.
And he's taking a sword to Viserys's statues. He built that in
his Lego set.
His Lego set, yeah. His medieval Legos. Yeah. And he's taking a sword to everything, which we saw he carefully curated that. He didn't make any of it, but he would carefully study the designs and all that and get the stonemasons to make it for him. Constructing Old Valyria, which, if you think about it, his goal in everything was to create a peaceful kingdom, and I feel like that was reminiscent of what he was trying to do. Rebuilding Old Valyria the best that he could. He did a good job maintaining peace throughout his rule. Now you got Aegon, this young, pissed-off kid who has a sword. His son's just died, and he's taking a sword to all of that. And he's pretty much negating all of Viserys' work. That was what that scene meant to me. But we get a quick touch with Aemond, and he's going through the room that him and Criston Cole were hanging out in, where the map was on the table, and all the coins are gone. And he notices that the coins are gone. What is that? But nothing really comes of that.
So essentially what that is to me is they are, I guess, foreshadowing Aemond. This is the best way I can do it. Aemond is going to die eventually. And in that one shot, you get him picking up the coin. He's got his one eye completely out. He's got another coin over here. He covers the other one. We know that when you die in this world, during this time, they do put coins over your eyes before you die. That's a foreshadowing of him dying. Now, what I don't understand is, and I had to pause it and look at it and try to figure out which coin it was. I believe it's the Dornish coin, and I know that Dorne is not yet involved necessarily. So I do want to see how that comes into play, because there's no way that it would just be a random one. Like if it was a Stark coin, it would be like, okay, Cregan Stark might be the one to kill Aemond. That would make sense to me.
All right.
But it's a Dornish coin, so I don't know what that has to play. Does somebody from Dorne kill him? And we don't know anybody from Dorne yet, so that's something to keep an eye on for me. That's really the only thing I got from this scene, though.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's foreshadowing the death of Aemond, if he does get killed by somebody from Dorne, then you get a little point. We should keep a point board of correct predictions.
Correct death predictions.
I like that a lot. But we get Otto and Alicent, and they are just trying to come to terms with everything that happened. And this just shows you who Otto is. Love him or hate him, and I don't like him. I don't think a lot of people like him. This is the guy that you want as Hand of the King. He is immovable. In this moment, your grandson just got his head cut off, and he goes, "We mustn't be shaken by this." It's like, well, you could take a sec.
Yeah.
You could take a sec and be like, damn, this is kind of heavy. But he's not. He is so good at either compartmentalizing or just like pushing emotions to the side for the kingdom. He is focused on the kingdom. For better or worse, he has the bigger picture always.
And he's trying to continue his lineage, of course. That's the whole reason for, usurping the throne and putting his grandchild on the Iron Throne. But it does show a good hand of the king. Every crisis comes opportunity. The crisis hits, he immediately turns it into some other opportunity.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and send out ravens and let everybody know what's going on here so that then they can start to turn on Rhaenyra, because who would kill a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old in their crib? Rhaenyra would. Rhaenyra the Cruel. Let's start changing her name. Let's do this and that. So he's a master propaganda guy. So
Yeah.
look, that's who you want as hand of the king for sure.
I agree. I think that he knows that Rhaenyra didn't do this. I think that he is probably dead set on the fact that this was a Daemon move. I don't think that he thinks Rhaenyra did it. I think that he's using this to spin it
I don't
because
think it matters that what he may think that it is. He may think that it's not, but he knows exactly what he has to do in this moment.
yeah,
And he also knows that Aegon being king, he's going to be throwing a tantrum up in his room right now, smashing anything that he can get his hands on, and no one else is really going to be able to do anything because they don't know what to do. They weren't prepped for any of this. None of the kids were prepped for any of this. They were never set to rule. They never cared about it. So he has to try to hold everything together because he's the only one who knows what he's doing.
yeah, that's a good point. But there's a couple things during this scene that I want to discuss, and the first one is the child is dead. He's in no more pain.
Mm-hmm.
Is that implying just that he was in pain while the act was occurring, or
I thought that was a weird line.
right?
It didn't really make much sense to me. I don't think he was in pain to begin with.
Or is that more of the he's not going to have to carry the pain of being the king or being the heir to the
That's
king?
the only thing I can think of, yeah.
The second thing, and she's so fucking stuck on this, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't get why banging Criston Cole, I'm calling him KC from now on because it's
Yeah.
easier for me.
Even though it's a C.
Is it CC?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was K, like Criston.
No.
All right, so CC.
Yeah.
So C squared, I like that better.
C squared.
C squared, it's not the end of the world that you're banging this dude. And I think that maybe because she says the gods punish us, they punish me, implying that her sins of hooking up with C squared is causing all of this backlash. Now, is that being set up to try to show the difference between the dudes in this world are allowed to do whatever, sleep with whomever, have bastard children? The women are having a much more difficult time to do that, or maybe they feel a bigger pressure where they're not allowed to do that, because we know they're not. Like,
Well,
it's looked at differently.
I think it's very quick we can do this very quickly. She realizes that if she wasn't banging Criston Cole, he would have been upstairs.
Is that it?
That's all it is.
That's
And she is we are led to believe that Alicent is very religious, and she's always lighting candles for the dead, and she's always going to prayer, whatever the hell she's doing. So I think that she feels like the gods are punishing her because she's doing this to, she's essentially forcing, or at least she might feel like she's forcing Criston Cole to do this, and he's taken an oath to not do that.
put oath in quotations.
Yeah, I know. Well, who the fuck cares?
This fucking
His
guy.
fucking cape is clean.
He's a little hoe.
Yeah, his cape is clean. It's all nice and white, but, his character's not. So him doing that, he's an oath breaker now, and she caused that. She pulled him away from his duties. He wasn't there to stand guard, so that's why this happened. So I think she just feels, and not nearly as much as we see later with Criston Cole, but what we see with Alicent in this moment is she feels a lot of guilt for this.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing that, I might still have a grandson at this point, but
Okay.
right now I don't.
All right. Okay. I can get down with that. But we move on to the council meeting, and Aegon's on one, obviously. He's, as you said, throwing shit, throwing a tantrum, getting pissed off. Larys
More than
joins.
anything, he's mourning the death of his son, which
Yeah, it's understandable.
Viserys wouldn't have done.
No, Viserys would have felt it, but he wouldn't have shown it.
No. Yeah.
Whereas Aegon is going to show all of it because he is purely running on emotion.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the ability to separate the two. And again, just looking at this room, the setup in this room, you're like, all right, this is the new guard. This is who's controlling the kingdom now.
He was never prepped to be king, though.
No.
How often do we see these? Like, he even had Jahearys last week in the small council, again, as a 5-year-old messing with Tyland. Funny, but at least he's there and he's trying to say, like, he's going to be king someday. Let's try to get him inundated with this stuff. Because Aegon never was. He was at, the brothels. He was getting drunk in the streets. He was missing. He was doing whatever the hell he was doing. So he never learned how to actually properly handle his emotions and being king.
Well, he was technically not the heir, though.
No,
Rhaenyra
he
was the
wasn't, yeah.
heir. Everyone was implying that he was supposed to be the heir, but that's probably why he wasn't in there. But also, I don't think Viserys gave a shit. I think Viserys was focused on being king and didn't think about the next one up, and was also so confounded on who's going to take over because everyone's telling me this and that, but whatever. Larys jumps in, and we find out that blood was caught. with the head. I don't know how you didn't get out of there. You have plenty of time. There's plenty of time to get out of there.
Too big of a guy.
You think?
Too big of a guy. He just, his eyes are drawn to him as he's trying to leave.
Okay, that would make sense. If you see that
Big guy with a sack with blood coming out of it, yeah, probably.
You got to think about your escape. This is why I said.
Well, he's a big dumb idiot.
Well, when you said last week assassin, I was like, whoa, let's not go. Assassin gets away.
Yeah.
Assassin sneaks out of this whole situation. But you start to see paranoia creeping in because Aegon now he starts questioning everybody who had a hand in this. And this is where Otto works his magic. He starts to spin everything. He Kris Jenners the situation. We need to tell the realm that it's Rhaenyra. And Aegon is against it. He doesn't want to be seen as weak, but sorry, pal. You are seen as extremely weak right now. Someone just infiltrated your castle, killed the heir to the throne within not very long post Viserys.
No, it's not. It's definitely a little longer than that. Maybe a few months.
Let's say 2 months.
Okay, yeah. The only reason that I would say that is just because we're now seeing, Jahearys is 5, so...
Oh, you think it's years?
I don't think it's years, but it's definitely at least a few months.
Okay, we'll give some kind of months.
Some kind of months, yeah.
But they're discussing how to handle this situation. He wants to do an open casket funeral where he shows the entire kingdom what Rhaenyra is capable of. Again, this is a whole propaganda spin. He's trying to turn anybody that was doubting Aegon as being the rightful heir against Rhaenyra. Everyone's not on board with this, understandably so. It's a pretty crazy thing to want to parade down a dead kid whose head was sewn back on. So I get that part of it. He's not wrong as far as this being a good play, but again, this is where you see Otto is fully enveloped in the game.
Mm-hmm.
He always has been, always will be. He's thinking kingdom first. I don't even think it's family second. It might be family fifth. I think it's kingdom, 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 his lineage, then actually giving a shit about the people in his family.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I think you could even argue, and this line might support that a little bit, I think that he is actually excited about this opportunity. I don't think he really gives a shit that Jahearys died. He's not showing any emotion, and he says Jahearys will do more than 1,000 knights in battle. So I think this is just all an opportunity for him. Then he sets the pieces. He says we need Alicent there, we need Helena there. King Aegon, we can spare him. Why?
Because I think just because it's going to speak more to the people, seeing the queen and the queen regent going through the streets, showing their emotions, crying. Look at this mother who lost her child. Look at this queen who lost her child. King Aegon doesn't need to be there because that's not what they expect of a king. Again, this just goes into the gendering between the two and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. It's not necessarily important for the masses of King's Landing to see Aegon going down and like crying because a king shouldn't be crying. I think that's more what it is.
Okay. The last time we saw a parade like this, it was shame. Ding, 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 shame. So it was nice to see another procession through King's Landing, even though this one... And when I think they did this on purpose because they wanted you to think it was going to happen. When that thing gets stuck, I was like, if this kid's head falls off...
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. But look, I think that the entire procession was a really good way of showing Helena's anxiety.
Yeah.
And we talked about this last week where she has completely lost her grip on reality and what's real and what's not and what the hell's going on and all of her visions that she's having. It would have been incredible if the kid's head had fallen off and rolled through the streets. That would have been wild imagery to show that even more. But it really was just to show you where Helena is, and I feel like where she's dealing with her anxiety of all of this going on now. Like she got like huddled up with Alicent, just jumped into her lap, like it became a child again. So now she's going through all of this, and it's really tough to watch.
Yeah, and I think that when you get the scene right before this where Alicent goes to Helena and says, you need to join me with this.
Yeah.
You see the difference of their focus as to what they're concerned about, because Helena is mourning the loss of her child, not the heir in waiting. She's mourning the loss of a kid. Alicent is trying to put the pieces of the kingdom back together while also being concerned about her own selfish endeavors, because in that moment, she has to say, by the way, what you saw last night, like, hey, you really think she gives a shit that she saw you banging Casey, C squared, Criston Cole, that hoe? She doesn't give a shit.
No, she doesn't give a shit, but she has at least come to grips a little bit, because we did see her last week at the end saying they killed the boy, and now it's, they killed my boy, or my boy is gone.
So it's
changed a little bit, and she's at least coming to some sort of terms with this, but anything that any goodwill that she's figured out or any sort of mental space that she's figured out over the last couple of days, completely gone after that procession.
I agree. And there's two things I want to note. One, she snags that statue, that little statue, as they leave the room. That never came back yet. And I'm curious I thought she was going to maybe use that to maybe off herself, maybe off somebody else. Maybe that was protection.
I think it was just more to show, a mother mourning, grabbing one of his toys.
That was it?
Yeah.
All right. And then the other thing, because it comes in later with Rhaenyra, she looks up as they're throwing, I wrote confetti. Obviously, it's not confetti because this is not a celebration.
I don't know what it is, though.
Sad fetty. They're throwing sad fetty down on the procession, and she gets like hyper focused on it, and you just see the little pieces falling.
I still want to see one of her visions. We don't see anything that she sees.
Is that a vision? Is that her having a moment?
I think
where
it could
it's
have been, or it could have been her having a full-on mental breakdown.
But here's what I wanted to draw it back to. Fast forward, Rhaenyra is sitting at Dragonstone, and she's staring at the window, and she's staring at the dust as it trickles down. It's a very similar scene. I want to know, because look, nothing in this show is by accident. They do that on purpose. I want to know what the parallel is there. Is that a moment to connect these two because they're both parents, where in this moment where she's looking at the sad fetty come down, she is in a funeral procession. On the flip side, when she's looking at the dust come through, she's sitting with her two kids at Dragonstone.
Yeah. She does it a couple times, too, because even later than that, when her handmaid is doing her ponytail or whatever she was doing, she kept walking away and looking at things and walking away and looking at things. I think really what it is it's their depiction of showing these two characters lose their grip on reality and start to slip more and more into the madness, whatever that might be for each of them, and showing that they're not fully there mentally. They've had a lot going on. They have a lot on their minds. Things have happened to them, and they're slowly kind of moving away from everything.
Okay. All right. I'm just, when I saw the scene with Rhaenyra later, because I made note of her focusing on the sad fetty, and then when I saw it with Rhaenyra, I was like, okay, this is something. I'm not sure what. Maybe we'll get a callback to it later on. But moving on, we get Blood and Larys are in the dungeon, and he lets it slip. I was hired by Daemon. He outs Cheese, the rat catcher.
Oh, that big pussy.
I know, dude. He
couldn't even go through a little bit of torture.
He folded before he even got poked by anything.
Yeah.
And he, Larys comes in, and of course he's got like the serial killer rollout. He's got the Dexter set up. And Aegon is actually the one that comes in to punish him. And I don't think there was anything meaningful about this scene other than Aegon wanted to.
Somebody pointed out that it was the same tool. Now it might not be the exact same thing
that he whacked them with.
It's the same thing that Joffrey used to beat his birthday present in like season 2 or 3 of Game of Thrones.
Oh.
But I don't know if it was the same one. It's the King's thing. It could be, but
maybe that's possessed then.
Yeah.
So that turns you into a.
Well, between that and later Bela's using a bolt, and I'm like, is that the crossbow that we saw that Joffrey was using? But it wasn't because it didn't have the lion on it. There's too much of this shit going on with Game of Thrones. Every time that they show like a weapon or something, like obviously the main weapons, the ancestral weapons, like Cregan Stark had ice, the big fucking Valyrian steel sword. So there's always things popping up like that, but I'm too close. I'm getting too close to the attention to detail that I think everything is connected.
Yeah, I know. I do the same thing. That's why I write down shit, and then I have to look back, and I'm like, that's probably not a thing.
Probably not a thing.
There was one last week, I already forget what it was, that I wrote down, didn't mention. I was like, nah. And then I was reading through Twitter or something, and somebody called it out, and there was a whole thread. I was like, damn it. I was like, I did see it. But I wish I remembered what it is. But anywho, we get to Dragonstone. And their reaction to all of this, they're finding out the news, and they're recapping Jaehaerys' death. Obviously, Rhaenyra's denying it because she didn't ask for that. However, I thought it should have popped into her head a little quicker.
Maybe a little quicker.
A little faster to put the pieces together.
Figured that one out.
She figured it out instantly. By the way, just take a peek to your right. Daemon's smirking.
Yeah.
He's smirking at this whole thing. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
But she peeks over at Daemon as Rhaenys pegged him very quickly, and she's like, oh, bingo, light bulb.
I loved the transition from scene to scene with this too, because they're obviously going through it, and Rhaenyra is talking about, why would I kill an innocent child? That's not what I wanted. I specifically said I wanted this person. And Daemon is, for a while there, enjoying this, thinking, oh, you know what? She might like this at some point. Maybe she'll be okay with this at some point. She's not. And as soon as we see her expression change, it just flips right into the next one. How the fuck could you have done this? It was a mistake. It wasn't. You were ready to say, You told me a son for a son, and we saw, and look, I always watch the recaps too. Whenever we're going through this, it's probably the only show that I ever do this with. But actually watching, this is last week. Okay, great. These are things that are going to be important. Once again, they highlight that Daemon stopped and looked up and smiled at the end of that with, what happens if we can't find Daemon? Rhaenyra asks him the exact same question. What happened if they couldn't find him? I don't know. I told them to go through and try to find Daemon. It's not a mistake. You told them specifically, and it's just drawing this parallel to how he was with Viserys, how he has been his entire life, where he's not always fully truthful, and he is a bit of a dog off his leash, going and doing whatever he wants when things do fall apart. He improvises. We saw it last year during that battle down in for the Narrow Sea, when he got crowned king of the Narrows and he went after the crab feeder.
Yeah.
He improvises, and a lot of times it works for Daemon. And this time I would argue that it still did work technically, but not in the way that Rhaenyra wanted to present, and she is the queen, he is not the king.
That is correct, but I do think that he has this weird sense of, he thinks what he's doing is correct.
Yeah.
For everybody, for Rhaenyra, for him. Obviously, it's self-inflicted, and I think for his own personal gain more than others, and he can't get out of his own way. Like, those crazy thoughts and feelings are always there, but his intention is not bad.
Yeah.
Which sounds funny saying his intention is not bad, killing a child, but his aim is not to fuck everything up. He thinks that that's the right move. And if you go back to season 1, his answer is always, let's kill somebody, let's be violent. Whereas, as we saw with Viserys, a better way to rule is with a softer hand.
Yeah.
But that's his idea of what ruling means and making moves and playing the game, this Game of Thrones, if you will. This is what he's trying to do. So I think that his intentions, again, funny to say, his intentions aren't wrong. The way he goes about things, he's so impulsive that he doesn't give a shit about the ramifications. He thinks, okay, if we get a kid, any kid of Alicent, this is going to be some kind of retribution for what happened. And Rhaenyra will at some point, like you said, be like, oh, good move, Daemon.
Yeah.
But this whole scene between these two is such an important one, I think, to set up their dynamic. Because as we've seen over the past 2 seasons, they've always had a very conflicted relationship. You can tell Rhaenyra's been in love with him since last season.
Yep.
That's very obvious, very apparent. You can also tell that, as she says, she doesn't fully trust this guy. She wants to trust him, but it's impossible to do so because even when you think you know him, he'll go and kill a kid. So I think that watching them try to battle with each other and also not ramp it up, and that's the only person I think that Daemon can have this conversation with, or any conversation with, where he's being challenged and not escalate instantly.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. He doesn't fully escalate. He knocks a couple of cups over, gets in her face, but he doesn't take it to the point that he usually would with anybody else. And I think this scene's really important because, one, obviously it ends with Daemon being cast off from Dragonstone. Go to Harrenhal, go treat with them, figure it all out, do what you have to do in your own Daemon way, but you can't be here and you can't be part of the council right now because we need to figure out how to clean up your mess. But I do think this is important for Rhaenyra's character development as queen because she's too soft to actually be queen. You can't sit there and say, well, we don't kill kids like that. What just happened to your son?
They just killed yours.
You need revenge. You need to show that you're still strong. You need to show we can get into your castle and we can kill your kids in your sleep. As weird as that is to say, you need to show some power and do that.
Thrones.
You should be sitting here saying, this is going to be a PR nightmare. Everybody's going to be like, what the fuck? We're
all
killing
the tabloids are talking about it.
And now you're a kinslayer, you're all this and that and whatever, and you can spin whatever you want into Rhaenyra the Cruel. But she does need to get a little closer to what Daemon's level is. And again, by casting him off, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. Because I would disagree with what Otto said last week when he was talking to Aemond, saying that Aemond and Vhagar are the biggest and most fearsome threat in the entire realm. Aemond and Caraxes are. That's real.
Daemon and Caraxes.
Daemon and Caraxes are.
I agree.
Daemon is way more seasoned. He's way more feared. And we see it a little bit later with Aemond in his little weird scene. Daemon is not afraid of anybody.
No, he doesn't give a shit.
You do need him to be there and you need him by your side. And as soon as he leaves, you now have a threat where somebody's coming to kill you. If Daemon's there, that probably doesn't happen. So that's the thing that we need to keep our eye on. And again, I actually saw, I don't know if you watched the after show, but the director of this episode came on, or maybe it was the showrunner, came in and said, we're going to see how Rhaenyra struggles without Daemon in the next couple of episodes.
I did see that.
So
I
yeah, you don't have to agree with him all the time, but you do have to at least embrace his craziness because that's going to get you to where you want to be.
agreed. And I think that what the duo is when they're together and what we've seen for the entirety of the show thus far, they are a package deal. So that is an all-encompassing king, if you want to say, or an all-encompassing queen. They are one. Whereas if Rhaenyra wants to rule solo, she has to be able to prove that she can do it without Daemon, that people will still fear her, revere her, and respect her without Daemon there. And I think that the presence of Daemon, like you said, belays a lot of
Bit of a deterrent, yeah.
It's a deterrent for threats. It's a deterrent for people to press her, and she needs to be able to stand on her own 2 feet. I think this is a big test. Even more so by her highlighting the fact, like, do you accept me as the queen? Do you accept me as the rightful heir to the throne? Is this all a big tantrum because the throne was stolen from you and given to me? Daemon handles it fairly well in the beginning, and then he says, like, pretty much, you know that Viserys gave you the kingdom just to piss me off, right? Yep. And that's kind of the breakdown of their communication, because she just flat out says, I can't trust you. I can't trust you, sends him off to Harrenhal, which again, as we've heard, that is going to be the deciding factor of this war. And a Daemon scorned is a Daemon you don't want to fuck with. Like, he's going to go get things done. So it's almost an inadvertent great move to get him out there riled up. He's going to go do what he needs to do. Daemon as a tool of the throne, fantastic. Daemon on the throne, a little scary.
Yeah, and I think that she's worried that she can't control what he's doing, and that's probably part of this because she wanted Aemond. He didn't deliver Aemond. Instead, he killed a kid. So she's worried, okay, I have Daemon on my side, but I can't actually control him. And I would say you actually can, because the way that we saw you guys interact, you poked every little insecurity that he had, and usually that would end with him being the aggressor. And instead, he got up and he was willingly leaving. Yeah. You kicked him out and he left. He didn't stay. He didn't cause a huge commotion. So you do have a dynamic with Daemon that no one else has had in this show. No one else has been able to, quote unquote, control him. But having him on your side is really important. And yeah, maybe that was a little bit of, you piss me the fuck off. Go do something good for me. And he'll go get Harrenhal. He'll get the foothold that they need in the war. And then come back and say, here you go. Am I forgiven now?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what she's hoping, but I don't know.
I don't think he's going to come back like that. But I agree with you where they have a connection. They have more of a connection than anybody else in the show. They're arguably very similar to one another, whereas Daemon just leans more towards the aggressor side and Rhaenyra leans more towards the peaceful side. But their temperament and I think how they operate are so similar. I think that's what this scene is highlighting, is their differences, but also their similarities on how close these two characters are. And say what you want, Daemon loves Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra loves Daemon. That's been apparent for 2 seasons. So definitely. This was a super important scene, I think, and I think it's going to set up a lot more. I do think that Daemon's going to go just fucking scorched earth in a good way for Rhaenyra, so that'll be exciting to watch.
God, I hope so.
It's got to happen, especially in the Riverlands when he gets to Harrenhal. Like, that is the toehold they need. They keep saying it, so that will transpire, I believe. But we move on. We get Rhaenyra and Baela, and Baela being Daemon's daughter, she sends her to go watch King's Landing. Now, Jace had wanted to go do that. He wanted to go scout, make sure that they weren't making any moves. She said no. Quite clearly, she doesn't want to lose another kid.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Baela was the next woman up, though.
Well, look, I mean, you can't send Rhaenys. I'm just trying to roll through the dragons that they have at their disposal. Baela is really the next one up. Her and Moondancer, that makes the most sense. And she is capable. I mean, we saw her shooting that crossbow later.
It's not about capability.
I don't think it's, if you were going to go down the road of she's going to send Daemon's daughter out there, and that could be like I'm going to put your daughter at risk instead of my son or anything like that. No, I think this is honestly her showing, because that's her stepmom, if you will, if you want to say that. Stepmom, step-aunt, both? Step-aunt.
Step-aunt?
Step-aunt. Yep, there we go. So, no, I think this is
would
truly...
that be a half-aunt? She's related to Daemon.
Yeah.
So it's not a step.
Whatever.
It's blood.
Yeah, yeah, it's gross. But no, I think this is just next woman up, and she's next in line to go do that.
Okay, but I think there's no way that there's not more to it. Because if she gets whacked, now Daemon's going to have a dead kid. Now Daemon's going to lose his shit. Now there's a lot of dead kids. This is apparently the season.
I don't know if Daemon actually cares. He walked right past her in the hallway.
Whether he cares or not's irrelevant. That's an excuse if he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He can say, they killed my kid.
Yeah.
It'll still have repercussions regardless. I don't know. But Daemon leaves on Caraxes. Not Cyrexis.
Not Cyrexis.
Call your primary physician for Cyrexis. He heads out on Caraxes, so he's headed to, I believe, Harrenhal. We'll find out hopefully next week. I don't want a week without Daemon. I need Daemon. Matt Smith is just fantastic. So let's not have any Daemon free weeks.
No.
Let's figure out what he's doing next
I just hope
week.
he brought his hoodie with him.
Yes.
Need war crimes.
We need war crimes from Daemon. That keeps this show going.
Sure does.
Keeps the audience going.
Definitely does.
We're deplorable people. But we get a very quick scene of Helena and Aegon crossing the stairway. One's going one way, one's going the other way. They don't speak. They just share a glance as they walk by. Now, do you think that they are not ready to address what happened? Do you think this is a quiet nod to each other, like, yeah, we're on the same page, this fucking sucks, I'm really sad? What do you think this scene meant?
I think it's that. I think it's the quiet nod. And part of this was watching the after show with the actor who plays Aegon said, you can see that they have this sort of relationship where they sort of share a look. They look at each other. There's a nod in there, and I keep going my way. She keeps going her way. I think that's their relationship, their dynamic. They're never really together, and we saw that obviously last night when Jahearys was killed. He's sitting in the throne room with his boys. She's alone with the babies, so there's just no connection there. But I think they do understand each other, and if you watch it closer, you can see Helena walking up the steps. They share that look. He points that he's going to continue walking forward. He keeps walking. She just kind of nods and then walks up the steps. So I think that is their rapport.
Like acceptance of some
It's
kind.
acceptance. They're both grieving in their own ways. It sucks, and they're not ready to actually, maybe they never were and they never will be, but they're not ready to like come together as like a traditional, husband and wife and grieve together.
Maybe this will be the caveat for them teaming up. Maybe this is not the last we've heard from Aegon.
Unless Helena is completely gone, which is fine.
Which could happen, but I could also see Aegon making a push at some point of trying to be competent, trying to be a big player in this game. I don't think it's going to work out in the end, but I could see him at some point trying to step up, and maybe they team up. Maybe that's a faction that we haven't
I could see him hopping on Sunfire and going to Harrenhal himself.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I think we even got a clip of like what to expect this season, him riding into battle or riding somewhere fully suited up in armor. So I think we'll get him reacting, but that's how he rules. That's his whole entire MO is reactionary. Anything that happens, here's my reaction. I'm just going to fucking do it because fuck it, I'm the king.
Yep.
And that's going to be his entire rule. So I think what you get from Helena is the potential to, she can't control him. What am I kidding?
No, she can't.
Yeah. Fool's dream. But this next scene of C Square, Criston Cole is just standing by and watching as they break down Jaehaerys' bedroom. And they walk the mattress out, and it's covered in blood. And I think that he's having a moment where he's realizing how much he fucked up, where if he was on guard, if he was doing his job, I'm not saying he would have saved the kid, but we'll never know if he could have saved the kid. Yeah. So we're seeing that weigh on him. And look, he's the biggest piece of shit on this show.
Yeah.
Hands down. This guy sucks ass. And it's all because you're pissed off that a teenage girl wouldn't leave with you to go to the free cities?
Pretty much.
That's what it all comes back to.
That's really what it all comes down to. Now, obviously, he's a shitty person. I did see, and there's shitty real people out there who were commenting on all of his Instagram comments saying, fuck you, I hate you.
The real life guy?
Real life guy, yeah.
Stop.
Yeah,
this
people
is
are
the
morons.
problem with people.
Yeah, what's his name? Fabian Frankel. He had to turn off his comments on Instagram.
He's not a real person.
Yeah. But honestly, that's a nod to how well he plays the character.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, he's great. Don't let me, I'm not going to be one of those people.
No,
the character's a dick.
Yeah.
The actor's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's banana land. I can't imagine watching a show about fucking dragons and then being like,
dragons?
Fuck this. No, absolutely not. No, I believe in a lot of weird shit. Dragons, no. What do you mean?
I could see.
Like a dinosaur that resembled one, maybe. But like a fire-breathing medieval dragon, no.
Well, I didn't say medieval.
Current. You're saying there's current dragons.
Current dragons, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's called a bearded dragon.
That's a lizard.
Called a kimono dragon.
Also a lizard. No wings, no fire. You're losing me. In between Criston Cole talking to Alicent, which is the next thing this is where you see the quick cut to Rhaenyra with her kids and the castle statues. And I don't know if that was a nod to Viserys's structures in his room. The kids are sitting there. She's got her own little structures, this own little kingdom with the dragons involved. The kids are there. That's when she looks up and sees the dust. This is the moment that I was talking about. So I don't know if that was a nod to her being capable of being that leader, that queen. We cut back to C² and Alicent, and her first thing is she asks him, have you told anyone? And accuses this guy. Like, obviously he hasn't told anybody about this because that would make him look like shit. And now she's trying to place blame because she feels like shit. They both just feel like shit because they realize that their decisions have ramifications. Once again, the new guard's coming up. I didn't realize that he was going to be made Hand of the King later, spoiler alert. But this literally is the new regime taking charge and realizing, oh, fuck, when we do things, people die. It's not like before where we can fuck around. Oh, this is fun. I'm sneaking into your room at night. No, this is wartime, baby.
No, it's the same thing as what the woman in the brothel with Aemon says a little bit later. When a prince is angry, the rest of the people, the poor people, the free folk, the
small
common folk, they're the ones who suffer the most.
Yes.
Everybody's starting to realize that. All these little young idiots that kind of grew up and didn't know what the hell to do with their power, and now they have a bunch of power. Everything that they did actually impacts other people, and I think they're starting to realize that. They're both so guilt-ridden, but it shows you that neither of them have the balls to do anything about it. They're always going to blame somebody else. They're going to try to find their way out of it. They're not embracing this head on. And they're not even talking to each other about it. They're just going to continue doing what they're going to do.
No, they have weird moments of silence, and then they're mad at each other, and they anger bang, which we get at the end of the episode. They're incapable of, one, controlling their impulses.
By the way, are we going to fucking end every episode with the two of them banging? I don't want to.
Here's the thing. If they committed to that bit for an entire season, I would respect that.
I wouldn't.
I think
too much.
I
hate them.
I don't want to see it. I'm saying if they just were like, this will be a little fun thing that we're going to do, just end each episode with these two hooking up, I would have respect for the showrunners.
Okay, fair.
I don't think it's a
I'll give you
fun
that.
thing to watch.
No.
I'm with you there. It would just be funny if they're like, hey, hey. Like if that was a little, hey, 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 people are going to hate this. I like that.
We get like some serious plot twist, and then 2 minutes later, it's just the two of them banging, and then credits roll.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. There's just a quick cut. It makes no sense. It's
Could have
just
just ended
two.
it there.
Like, what? Why do they keep doing this? And then they're like giggling while they're watching it. That would be funny to me. But like you just said, they're both so guilt-ridden, and we see that immediately after as Criston Cole goes to the King's Guard and is looking for somebody to place blame on. And he sees Arryk sitting there, and the notice of the cloak, I think, is important because he's standing there with his white, clean cloak, and he looks ahead. Arryk's cloak is covered in mud, potentially blood. So he is literally dirty because he's doing his job. On the flip side, Criston Cole is clean because he's not doing his job. And I think that that's what's setting right there. So to make himself feel better, he's like, you need to go change that because, what did he say? I wrote it down. A white cloak is a sign of our purity and sanctity.
Yeah.
Sir, wipe your face. It's still wet. You know what I'm saying? Like, shut the fuck up. You don't get to be the one that's pointing fingers at anybody for breaking oaths. He has a dirty cloak because he did his job.
Yeah.
Your cloak's clean because
he has a dirty cloak because he was at the funeral procession taking the child that you couldn't save down to the dragon pit to go finally die or like get his body burned by a dragon, as is custom for the Targaryen house.
I just like the way you said that. Get his body burned by a dragon.
Yeah, that's how that works. You didn't do any of that shit. You stayed up and felt bad for yourself the entire day when you're the reason why this happened.
Yep.
So don't go after our boy Arryk, which, by the way, he's not bad. I don't like to call him the bad one because he's fine. You know, he made a decision.
He made a decision.
And there's still love between the brothers, so I'm okay with him. And he also stood up to Criston Cole, and I really liked it in this scene.
I did too.
Where as soon as he stands up and says, "Where the fuck were you, Lord Commander?" everybody else clears out.
I know.
I
They're
loves
like,
that.
nope.
Everybody's packing up. Nope, we're getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, someone's gonna die.
Yeah.
Nobody did, but I'll give you that. Where Arryk is not a huge piece of shit. Fine. I think they both picked allegiances, and they actually, I think that's even a nod to that, where he's trying to challenge him. Criston Cole's challenging him as to not being honorable, not upholding his honor. He flips it on him and goes, actually, I am the most honorable. I split with my brother, who I love, by the way, because I believe in King Aegon and I believe in this throne. I don't believe in Rhaenyra. So I stood my ground because I chose the honorable path to stay with the King's Guard instead of flipping like my brother did. It breaks my heart, but he chose his path. I chose mine. Go fuck yourself, Criston Cole.
Yeah.
I think that even gets under Criston Cole's skin because he's incapable of doing that. He's going to follow whoever's banging him at the time. He's just a pissed off teenager that got broken up with.
Yeah.
And now he's getting the ramifications.
He's a pissed off teenager that got broken up with that keeps getting promoted within his job for not doing his job.
I know.
Doesn't make any sense.
No.
That's not anything good.
We all know somebody like that.
Yeah.
That's an idiot, and they just keep getting, like, moving up. You're like, how?
Even he's surprised that he keeps getting promoted.
He was stunned later.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Once I saw the scene unfolding, I was like, oh, I know what's going to happen. But he was baffled, and he should be. You got the heir in waiting killed.
Yep.
You piece of shit. Because you got to bang everybody.
Yeah, and this is when he unveils the funniest fucking plot ever. You're just going to go in and you're going to act like your brother.
Yeah, I know. It was.
I saw somebody tweeting out that it's essentially this was Criston Cole's plan, and it was the two Lindsay Lohans. It was just Parent Trap.
It is Parent Trap.
That's exactly what it is. You're going to go in, nobody's going to be able to notice. You look exactly like them. You'll be able to figure it out. In my mind, I'm thinking the entire time, what if they dress differently? What if Rhaenyra doesn't do a white cloak? What if she does a black cloak?
Mm-hmm.
What if he's not wearing the same armor? What do you do then?
What if he walks into the room and he's standing there?
Yeah, like there's so many fucking variables that you just did not think through. You're just rushing to any sort of plot that you can to try to fix your wrongdoings. And you're going to use someone else to do your dirty work for you because you can, again, because you're in this position of power where he has to do whatever you're telling him to do. I would have liked it if Arryk at that point in time said, what does the hand think about all of this? What does the king think about all of this? Obviously, the king probably would have agreed. Brilliant idea, because I'm an idiot too. This sounds really good. But no, he has to sit there, and it sucks because he just sat there and told Criston Cole, I had to split with my brother, and it breaks my heart, and I still love him. And Criston Cole's response is, how about you go in there and you go kill his queen?
And pretend
and
to
then
be him.
Pretend to be him. And if you see him, you're also going to have to kill your brother.
Yeah.
Great call.
Cool. High five. Yeah. Do it for glory, for triumph.
Yeah. No.
And I think that Arryk realizes I don't really have a choice here. I have to go do this. So fuck me, right?